Hola! In this video, we are going to learn how to tell time in Spanish. Cómo decir la hora en español. So let's get started. These three words could all be translated time in English. Tiempo, hora, vez. We also know that tiempo can mean weather. So right now, all you need to know is that when we are talking about telling time, like on a clock, specific hours in the day, we are not going to use tiempo and we are not going to use vez. The only correct terminology when you're talking about a clock and like what specific time it is to use the word hora, which actually means hour. So in Spanish, to ask what time is it, this is what we say. In Spanish, what we are actually saying when we say what time is it, ¿qué hora es? We're actually saying what hour is it? Because this word hora technically means hour, but in English, we don't say what hour is it, we say what time is it. So just know in your brain, ¿qué hora es? Is how we would say what time is it. But what you're actually asking is what hour is it? Why do we care? This is why. Okay, so to start off, we need to know that when we're talking about time in Spanish, we're going to be using the verb ser, to say is or are. We remember that ser means to be. And if we remember our verb chart, we remember that when we are going to say it is, we use this one right here, es. So if we want to say he is, she is, it is, right there. If we want to say they are, ellos son, we use son. When we are telling time, these are the two verbs you're going to use to say what time it is. You are always going to say either es or son. Now, to help us understand why we're going to say either es or son, it helps to understand what we are actually saying when we're talking about time in Spanish. When we're answering this question in Spanish about what hour is it, since we're saying, oh, the hour is, we're going to say either es or son, because technically we're saying the hour is 1 o'clock, or we're saying the hours are 2 o'clock, the hours are 3 o'clock. Okay. If that makes no sense to you, don't worry, because it sounds funny in English, we do not think like that. So if that's a little confusing to you, all you need to know is that when you're answering the question, what time is it, ¿qué hora es? If the time is 1 o'clock, anywhere in that period, 1 o'clock, 1:15, 1:20, 1:30, if you're saying anything about 1, you're going to say es la. To say it's 1 o'clock, it's 1:15, it's 1:30. Es la. If you are saying it's 2 o'clock, it's 2:30, it's 3, it's 4 o'clock, it's 5:30, any other number besides 1, you are always going to start with son las. Because we're talking about a plural hour. Son las 2, son las 3, son las 4, son las 5, son las 6, son las 7, son las 8, son las 9, son las 10, son las 11, son las 12. You will keep going starting with son las. The only time you say es la is when you're talking about 1 o'clock or any time within that 1 o'clock period. If you noticed, you're like, wait, I thought 1 is uno, so why are we saying una? Well, remember that adjectives can change in Spanish. And technically, when we're telling the time, we're really saying the hour is. So una is describing hora, right? Hora is feminine, la hora, the hour. The hour is 1. La hora es una. If that's a little confusing, don't worry. All you need to know is that when we're telling time, we say una. But if you're kind of like the person who likes to understand why, this is the reason why. Now let's move on and we're going to talk about some other ways to say the specific times. Like, well, what about when it's 1:15, 2:15, 3:15? Let's learn those. Okay, so the easiest way to learn how to tell time first in Spanish is just using a digital clock format, where we usually would have the hour, and then let's say it's 1:05. All you need to know are the numbers in Spanish, and then right here, the word and. So in English, when we say 1:05, in Spanish, you would say es la 1:05. Es la 1:05. If it's 1:10, then all you would do es la 1:10. Es la 1:10. How about this one? Es la 1:20. That's it. Now, when we're talking about other hours like 2:05, then instead of saying es la, you're going to say son las. Son las 2:05. That's it. Let's say, pretend it's 2:16. Son las 2:16. 2:30. 2:30. What about 2:55? 2:55. 2:55. If you just want to know how to say time the easiest way possible, the most basic way, that's all you have to do. That's all you need to learn. You just need to know the numbers 1 through 59, say the hour, and then the minutes. However, other people might use some other vocabulary words when they are talking to you. So I'm going to go over those now to make sure you can understand them, because you can choose what you say, but you never know what someone else is going to say. And just like in English, when we say, oh, quarter after or half past, in Spanish, there are some other special terms used with time. Now, one note about digital clocks. Since digital clocks are so popular now, it is really, really common to hear people just say like the exact minute. If it's 2:53, people are going to say, son las 2:53. Sometimes you might not hear people say E. Sometimes you might not hear that. Grammatically, this is the grammatically correct way to say it. However, because we're human, we like to say things the easy way. You may hear people say, son las 2:53. You might hear it. But just know that grammatically, you are supposed to have that little E in there to make it grammatically correct. Now, what are some of the other common vocabulary words that you're going to hear when people are talking about time? Or if you're taking a Spanish class and you need to memorize it, get your notebooks ready. Here they are. So I know a lot of us always use digital clocks and we rarely use analog clocks. And some of us are like, what? I don't even know how to tell time on that clock. But understanding how this clock works actually helps us understand some of these vocabulary words. So if you don't know how to tell time on this clock, I'm going to teach you how. If you do know how, good for you. First of all, to say like a clock, when we want to say it is 2 o'clock, son las 2 en punto. Basically, it's like saying on the dot, on the dot. Son las 2 en punto, or es la 1 en punto. 2 o'clock, in English we say o'clock, or we say on the dot, like exactly at that time. If you want to say half past, so let's think about 2. Now, if we think about it, now we got to think about math class a little bit. We have this whole circle, okay? So we got a circle. Ooh, half the circle would be how much? Ooh, well, if we divide it into 2, and we have half the circle, well, we know here, all of these little things represent 1 minute. How many minutes are in half of an hour? Very good, very good. 30 minutos. So we know that when the clock goes halfway past 2 o'clock, now it is 2:30. Son las 2:30. Or another way to say 2:30 in Spanish or half past 2 is 2:30. 2:30. So if you hear somebody say, oh, son las 2:30, what they are saying is that it is 2:30. Which we know when we're talking about time, 2:30 is halfway past 2 o'clock. Next, y cuarto. So we're starting again with 2 o'clock. Son las 2. Son las 2 en punto. Now in English, sometimes people will say it's 2:15. Now in my classes all the time, I have students who get mixed up on this because we don't hear the phrase quarter past, like we don't hear that very often. And a lot of times when we think of a quarter, what do we think of? 25 cents, duh. Okay, when we're talking about time, we are not talking about 25 cents. So a quarter past the hour is not 25 minutes. Now let's think about math class again. So we have a circle. We know that half of the circle, okay, is this. And we just reminded ourselves that half of an hour is 30 minutes. 30 minutos. We know that a whole hour is 60 minutes. But now we want to know how much is a quarter of an hour. Well, let's split our circle into quarters or fourths. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why there's a quarter, because it's a fourth. How many would half of 30 be? Oh, 15. So in Spanish, when you are saying, for example, son las 2:15, 2:15 is the same as 2:15. It's the same as 2:15. 2:15 is the same as 2:15 because it's a quarter of the hour. Side note, why is a quarter called a quarter when we're talking about money, like United States money? Side note, right over here. How many pennies are in $1? 100. There are 100 pennies in a dollar. What is 100 divided by 4? 25. 25. 100 dividido por 4 son 25. That is why our quarter, like our money that's worth 25 cents, that's why it's called a quarter, because it's a quarter of a dollar. And a dollar is 100 pennies, so a quarter of a dollar is 25. But when we are talking about time, we are not talking about money. We are talking about time, although time is very valuable. Okay, some people would even say time is more valuable than money. But anyway, that's another topic. So just know when we are talking about time, and if you hear somebody say 2:15, whatever time it is, they're talking about 15 minutes. Okay, so in Spanish, if you want to say it is 2 o'clock on the dot, actually let's switch. We'll do 4 o'clock. It is 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock on the dot. Son las 4 en punto. How would I say it is 4:30? Son las 4:30. 4:30. Or I could say son las 4:30. How would I want to, if I wanted to say, oh no, it's only 4:15. 4:15. Be careful with that pronunciation. 4:15. The only difference in spelling is this. The RT and the TR. Sorry that light, you guys. I need to get some different light system, but that's all I got for now. So if it's 4:15 and I want to say 4:15, I would say son las 4:15. Son las 4:15. Ooh, say that 5 times fast. 4:15, 4:15, 4:15. Can you do it? I only did it 3 times. See if you can do 5. An easier way, you could just say son las 4:15. But remember, you get to choose what you say, but other people might not say those things. They might say these words, so you want to know how to understand them. Now, let's delete this. Let's erase this and talk a little bit more about some other vocab words. Hey, it worked. Okay, forgot to tell you before that disappeared to write that all in your notebook. So if you didn't write it down, rewind this video, write it down, and then continue. Now, the next word that is super special when talking about time is this word here. Menos. Basically, it means minus. Back in the day, before we had digital clocks, people didn't want to have to try to figure out, so is it like 4:53? It's kind of hard to tell on this clock. People found it easier to just say, it's 10 to 5, 10 to 5. But in Spanish, instead of saying 10 to 5, what you're actually saying is it's 5 o'clock minus 10 minutes. So let's pretend it's 4:50. But instead of saying son las 4:50, you're like, I don't remember how to say 50, but I do know how to say 10, and I know how to say 5. Then you can use this beautiful word menos, and you can say it is 10 to 5 by basically saying it's 5 o'clock minus 10 minutes. So all you would do, since we're saying 5, are you going to use es la or son las? Good job, son las. So you would say son las 5 menos 10. That's it. Son las 5 menos 10. Now remember those words that we learned? Cuarto, like 15. So you could say son las 5 menos 15. Or you could say son las 5 menos cuarto. If you want to say 4:45, son las 5 menos cuarto. And that is pretty much it about telling time in Spanish. So if you have any questions or you want to practice, go ahead and leave me some comments down below. Adios.